Yes, indeed. Welcome into a Halloween edition of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. Two of these guys better prepared for the day than I am at the moment. I'll be in my costume later. That over there is at Ant Rivera 86, and that hot dog down below. That we had to talk about wieners before we got on the air. More than I was anticipating at Fuzzy Chris 91, and I believe Milo has a matching hot dog costume there.
That is correct. Milo also has a hot dog costume, so we will match that. There will be pictures later, so everybody can look at our wieners.
That's exactly what we were striving to do here today. But, I mean, I do check that we're not for under 18, so I guess that's appropriate here. And how's your Halloween going?
I'm good. I just decided to throw this mask on as an extra, but I'm very excited for this Beetlejuice hockey jersey that I got. I mean, full on Halloween style. Let's go. Ready to talk some hockey. My Devils finally got a shutout from Jacob Markstrom. It's all good today.
Yeah, they looked pretty good in the Battle of the Hughes brothers last night up there in Vancouver. Jack Hughes getting a goal late to, stick it to his brother, I guess. But there we go. And I have a Aftershock t-shirt that is a themed of Tales from the Crypt. It says Tales from the Capitol because it's held in Sacramento in the capital of California. So that was one of the shirts. Probably my favorite one out of all the ones I've gotten. So, but yeah, neither here nor there. Today we're going to go through the NHL headlines. We'll do a quick check-in of our fantasy hockey league. Then we're doing a Halloween candy draft. And I think the thing that we're all most excited about is we're going to have a Canadian candy category because we recognize that this is not the same candy, even if they're different names or whatever, but there are different ones. I know what I want for my Canadian candy whether I snipe Chris or not for it.
If I get sniped on a candy draft that in regards to Canadian candy only, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
I mean, only 3 of them can be chosen, right? There's only going to be 1 each.
Well, there's a flex spot, which I'm assuming is open border, right? We're okay with that.
So that's completely open border there. So that can go whichever way you need to go. I know what I really want from the Canadian candy. I do have a pretty good backup. As long as I get one of those 2, I'll be happy to come away with that. But we'll get to the hockey draft later. But first, let's talk some NHL headlines here. And you can't start off without you can't start anywhere else besides the injury report. Let's start with Connor McDavid. He is going to be out 2 to 3 weeks with an ankle injury. Happened on Monday night, goes into the boards awkwardly after he trips over Zach Werenski's stick. Again, 2 to 3 weeks, 3 goals and 7 assists on the season. As we saw with the Oilers last year, doesn't really matter much what they do in October and November, because they put themselves in a complete hole and then ended up, doing what they did and then all the way to the Cup last year.
It's not ideal. So McDavid goes down early in that game, and then the Oilers looked exactly like they would without Connor McDavid, which is horrendous. So now they got to go basically 3 weeks, which let's assume that's about 10 to 11 games without him. Last year when McDavid wasn't in the lineup, I think they got 1 win. They 1 out of 6 or something. It's not good. It's not great. So I get that, like, the Oilers should probably practice not being so terrible to start NHL seasons. That would probably save them a whole bunch of trouble. But this is, it's not good, Oiler fans. This is not a trick. This is neither a treat. This is unfortunate.
Yeah, this is bad for a team that, basically has to get back to the Stanley Cup, right? Like there's no other option for this team just getting to the playoffs or just getting to the conference final. They went all the way to Game 7 after being down 3-0 of a Stanley Cup championship finals just to lose to Florida. And they need to get back there if they are going to be, one of the top teams, and not having Connor McDavid along the way for the next couple of weeks is it's brutal. It's very brutal. They're going to have Draisaitl step up fresh off of his contract. They're going to have Zach Hyman step up. I got one of their guys in Jeff Skinner, and he hasn't really done much. He could use a little bit of stepping up in this spot here. So they got a lot of things going wrong for them. But like you said, Adam, the beginning of the season, we saw last year them struggle to a big degree. They came back in such a historic way last season, and those don't really happen every year. So they really are going to have to kind of I guess, stay afloat right now until Connor McDavid can return.
And, it's looking like they said 2 to 3 weeks. So you're looking at, like you said, about 5 to, maybe 10, 11 games. I could see him coming back Saturday, November 16th against the Leafs, hockey night in Canada. That certainly would go to that 2 to 3 week range. And I would imagine he'd want to get back for that one. The other, you mentioned Zach Hyman. He's only got, one assist on the season right now? How do we feel about Zach Hyman right now? And obviously he doesn't, he hasn't been off to a good start, and now things just get worse for him. As a guy that helps generate offense for him, at least last year, he loses that guy.
I can't remember if it was you or Chris who were not very high on Zach Hyman during the draft.
That was definitely me.
Yeah,
because he's on my team.
So I mean, they're going to need him big time, but he benefited a lot from what Connor McDavid did. So, yeah, he's a guy that needs to step up. There's a lot of players on this team that could generate offense. They just have to step up to the plate and be able to do it.
Look, I mean, Zach Hyman, we knew the regression was going to happen. He was going to come back to the mean. The problem is he is cratered. Like, he has come all the way down, probably a little bit too far. And he benefited from two things last season that he's not benefiting from this year. The Oilers power play stinks. You cannot have that much talent and be that bad. Like, it's just not good. So all those power play goals, all those kind of things that hit him in front of the net. I mean, he scores from like 2 feet out, right? Like, it's not like he's out there, clapping bombs from 30 feet out. He's a guy who scores his dirty goals, and the Oilers are just not generating enough chances. That's, problem number one. And now, of course, with the McDavid injury, I mean, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to slot into the middle. I get that Nugent-Hopkins was once a centerman. I do not believe he is. You cannot replace Connor McDavid. You can barely piece him together. So this is now the Oilers having to find a different way to generate chances, because teams are going to start to just eliminate Leon Draisaitl now. Like, there's one guy, and like, if he doesn't beat you, let the rest of them do, and the rest of them haven't done it. So the Oilers also poor defensively. Their goaltending is what it is. Like, this is just not a good team.
Definitely not off to a good start. Hyman averaging just under 3 shots a game, 28 shots in 10 games so far. So getting some decent looks, but just nothing going there, and it's not going to get any easier for him without McDavid in the lineup. Another guy that's hurt, and it's amazing to say that Ross Colton was the leading AV scorer at one point, 1 goal, 9 assists. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks after breaking his foot. So Colorado, who we know is a very top-heavy team, but Ross Colton was one of those guys that was like, all right, that guy steps up. He's a secondary source for them. He's kind of like a across-the-board player, 200-foot hockey player that could also put the puck in the net. He can't afford to lose guys like that, and 6 to 8 weeks. He's looking at New Year's Eve before he returns, or maybe Christmas.
They are cursed. I don't know what the Colorado Avalanche have done to deserve this. Clearly, they've done whatever Montreal has done, because that whole lineup is just falling apart. They had a defenseman playing up front yesterday just so they can, do something. Kaapo Kähkönen is obviously not the solution there. This team is just like, they're in shambles. The same guys are producing, right? Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar, those guys are stable. Their power play is still clicking. Obviously, that there's nothing wrong there, but there's so many other dimensions of their game that are just so bad right now, and half of it is because of Alexander Georgiev. I mean, he is a fraud. We know that. He can't stop a beach ball right now. But the other part is, they're just not healthy, and there's only so much you can do, right? Like, you're missing probably at least 6 quality players in that lineup. It is extremely hard to put together a competitive team when basically half your forward group is, not there.
Lehkonen, Drouin are all out. Lehkonen is expected to come back soon, which that's great, but they need more than just him.
Yeah, he's supposed to come back, I think, on Tuesday against the Kraken, and I don't know how much of a difference maker he'll be, especially with the fact that over the last couple of years he has been really unable to stay healthy. He hasn't really played a full season since 2018-2019, where he played 82 games for Montreal. So it's been a long time for him. 70 games, 47, 58. I mean, he hasn't even gotten to the 70 mark since 1920, also with the Montreal Canadiens. So, they are just, this might be the year where this team, there's always one team that just gets hit constantly by the injury bug and like some of the worst luck. And it's probably the Colorado Avalanche this year.
I would also just like to give a shout out to Oliver Killington I'm just some beer league, bronze league hockey player, but I wear 58 and play defense. When I see a defenseman that wears 58 and gets to move up to the wing, a defenseman won't say, we love when we get our little chances up on the wing for a little bit. So shout out to him. Maybe add a little bit of fun. But time's not great in Colorado right now in terms of depth. But at least, hey, Casey Middlestat, at least he's producing. At least that's like a guy they need to produce as a secondary source of scoring, and he's at least doing his part there, so that helps.
They still lost this. Let's just be clear. Like that, there's like I get the moral victories here. This team still lost. So I mean, I figured no, I'm not going to feel sorry for them as a Habs fan who has dealt with more than enough injuries to my raw. Like I'm not crying here for them. I don't know. Whatever voodoo they got into, just reverse it. They also have a Stanley Cup, so again, I'm not crying for them in any way, shape, or form. They're fine.
So they found a way last year. We'll see if they continue to find a way. I did have a trade yesterday in the NHL. Timothy Liljegren getting sent to the San Jose Sharks for defenseman Matt Benning and a 2025 third-round pick. San Jose still has 2 other third-round picks there as well. But hey, kudos to Mike Greer for seeing an opportunity for a guy who wasn't really dressing for Toronto or getting that much opportunity. Still only 25 years old, so he's a guy that maybe he'll play for them. As the team improves, he'll be maybe a third, fourth, or second or third pairing defenseman. Excuse me. As the team rebuilds and gets better. So I like that move for San Jose, and Toronto gets Chris's favorite addition to the blue line, that sandpaper that Toronto loves to add.
All that sandpaper, just so they can get bounced in the first round. Love it. Good for San Jose, though. They did go out. They did. I mean, they took an opportunity. They need help on the blue line, right? Because the San Jose Sharks are still the San Jose Sharks. Like we're celebrating the fact that they got like their first win of the year, and I'm like, it's
2.
They got 2 now. Wow, they got two before.
They won back-to-back nights for that. Yeah.
2 before November. Shut it down. Shut the whole place down. That's wild. You know what I mean? Like everybody's. You were so happy to tell me they had 2 wins. That's where we are right now in Sharks Life. So yeah, adding players who can play hockey probably helps them. And Liljegren gets to go somewhere where he's going to have no shortage of minutes, no shortage of ice time, no shortage of goals against. He's going to play his probably 18 to 22 minutes, and he gets to live in California.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not to say he wants to get out of a place like Toronto where you're going to the playoffs and then whatever happens. But if for the sake of his career and playing time, this is a good move for him. And yeah, it's not that we care about plus minus. His minus is not going to be great here for the first season or 2, but they're going to give him all the minutes he can handle because you look at that blue line there: Cody Ceci, Jake Wallman, who's been running the power play. Mario Ferraro is a guy that'll have some trade value come deadline time. Jan Ruda, Henry Thrun, Jack Thompson. So now, he gets one of these spots and he'll get some time to, if he's going to develop, this is where it's going to be.
Jake Wallman has also played very well for San Jose. I know when I had taken him in our draft, I was just looking for somebody to basically just block shots and hits, and he's got points. And I'm like, okay, like what? And some of them are on the power play. And I'm like, what? Like that has been a nice little ad there. The Yzerman plan continues to be so effective, just giving guys away for nothing. When
they got Wallman, the plan was like, okay, you're going to be our power play guy. I mean, because there was really no competition in the room for that anyway. So like, hey, that's something you do well, or that's something that you hopefully continue to progress to do well. Here's your chance. And so far, not too bad, especially considering the surroundings. Like, yes, 2-7 and whatever. Like, it's not a great start for the Sharks. We were fans of starting to get shades of last year, but they got their 2 wins before November, and we'll see what happens here.
Small wins.
Small wins. Another defenseman on the move earlier this week, Oli Mata, was sent to Utah for a 3rd-round pick. He is a free agent after the season. Now, I want to just pull both. I want to pull the Coyotes fans aside for a second here. So you see what Utah did there? That they experienced some injuries out of position, and then they went out and addressed that need and upgraded it. I know you're not used to being in that position, so maybe that's a little foreign to you. You're still following the team. You know, like what is this? We're acquiring players that can help. Yes, you don't always have to be the seller. I know that's what you had to deal with in Arizona for the last 10 to 15 years, but it is possible to upgrade.
It is possible to acquire a player who will actually play for your franchise. He can actually suit up and go onto the ice. You don't have to be just the place where people go dump bad contracts or take on 50% of something to facilitate a trade to another team. You can go out and add players. But this will come to you, Arizona fans. Don't worry. Like, just take out a piece of paper, write it down, stick it on your TV. And so the next time trade happens with Utah, maybe you know, there's some connection there and you feel like, hey, I still want to follow hockey in Utah. Now you'll see what a well-run franchise looks like with an owner who's got some pockets and wants to spend.
And listen, we're not like sitting here trying to say Ole Mata is like solving their problems, but what we're just trying to say is that they had a depth issue and they went out and addressed the depth issue with a guy that can play. Is Ole Mata a hell of a defenseman anymore? No, he had a very short shelf life of being a good defenseman, but you can put him out there for 16 to 18 minutes a night if you need to. And that's what they need right now.
Well, we've also thought that coming into this season, once they got Sergachev there, that they would be somewhat competing, you know, for one of those final playoff spots. And, you know, right now they sit fourth in the division, super early, but, you know, along with Winnipeg and Dallas, who we knew were going to be up there, Minnesota, who, if we go back to last year, I thought that they were going to be a playoff team at the beginning of the season. Now they're playing to that potential right now. So I think they're 6-1. But Utah's right there with them. Obviously, St. Louis is hovering at 500, and then Colorado stinks. Nashville is going to, at some point, I have a feeling Nashville is going to come through, and Chicago. So Utah's got to do what they got to do to try to get into a playoffs and generate this fandom that they're trying to build out there. Eventually, when they, you know, change their team's name and stuff, they got the jersey colors looking good, but we'll see what happens with that.
We got State of Survival checking in. You just mentioned the Minnesota Wild. Kaprizov on fire. He might win the Hart. Yeah, I mean, if Minnesota, you know, makes the playoffs and Kaprizov has a phenomenal season. I mean, listen, we always say, like, for McDavid to not be in the running for the Hart, he's got to be injured. Now, listen, 2 to 3 weeks, that's a blip on the radar the way he produces. But if he were to get hurt again, now you have somebody that's a perennial favorite out of the equation. And, you know, he would have to miss a lot of time because he produces at such a high clip that even if he missed like a third of the season, he might still be in the running. But Kaprizov certainly is something one to consider there out of the gate. And yeah, he's saying what's going on with Hyman. Well, if you go back about maybe 10 minutes, we talked about what's going on with Zach Hyman. And yeah, that's one thing that even before the McDavid injury was a little concerning, that he only had that one assist, and now things are not going to get any easier for him there. So going through the NHL headlines here, as we always do on Total Hockey Now. Don't forget, give us a rate, review, subscribe, follow on all those social media platforms, Twitter/X right here, YouTube, or on Facebook. We've got some growth to report for both women's and men's professional hockey. The PWHL plans to add 2 teams for the 25-26 season. They say geography won't be a limitation, and also whether a city has an NHL team or not will not affect their ability to, will not sway their decision, although that I don't really buy. Because, I mean, don't you want to be in a place that already has an arena ready for that? But nonetheless, right now they're in St. Paul, Minnesota, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, and they play out in Newark, New Jersey. I know they're the New York, New Jersey team. No idea where they're going to go next, but anywhere they go, hopefully, you know, it's a good move. I always like to see growth.
You know where there's an arena?
Where's that?
Out in Quebec. Why don't you get a team out there? If you're not going to give them an NHL team, let's go.
I would love that, but I don't think they will. I don't think that's the NHL. That's the hockey team they're waiting for. But I will say this: it is a good spectacle. If you're somebody who likes to watch hockey and can't sell a kidney to go watch the Montreal Canadiens give up 3 goals in the first 10 minutes, you can go watch the women play and get just as much excitement.
I'll say this, like, if I'm Quebec, I'm lobbying for this hard, and here's why. Because they're like, oh, hockey can't work here. Hockey can't work here. Put a women's team there, and listen, I know the economics are different, but if they show up every night and that place is packed and it's rowdy, and they have like a significant home ice advantage over the other 7 teams that are in the league, that's one way to prove that, like, hey, we're ready for an NHL team. I mean, most people don't doubt they, but again, it comes down to the economics. But that would be an interesting little plot twist if they put a team there, and all of a sudden the Quebec PWHL team is just like one of the hottest tickets in the province after the aforementioned, Montreal Canadian tickets.
I think that would be good. Yes, I am on board with that. Last time I said move the Coyotes, they took it to heart, and they did. They just didn't move it to the right spot.
I mean, I know we tried to be specific, but I mean, at least out of the, at least early on, it looks like hockey and Utah are going to be a good marriage, and good for the long term there. Especially once they, whatever arena issues there were with sightlines and stuff get resolved. And then once they have like an actual normal full season and off season there, because obviously last off season was a little bit abnormal with moving there from the desert. But one good news, but I'm curious what the Coyotes value would have been had this Forbes list come out last year, because all 32 NHL franchises are now worth at least $1 billion in US dollars for the first time ever. 5 years ago, only 5 teams are worth $1 billion or more, according to Forbes. Even last year, 1/4 of the league was worth less than $1 billion. That's a big swing. So the Utah Hockey Club that we just talked about went for $1.2 billion. Tampa Bay was at 1.8. The Maple Leafs are the top valued team at $3.66 billion, which is 11% more than the next closest team, which is the Rangers at $3.25 billion. Columbus is the lowest at $1.06 billion. And just to kind of put in perspective, in a 10-year window, basically what winning can do for your franchise. When Vince Viola bought the Panthers in 2013, it was reported to be about $250 million. After the Panthers are now Stanley Cup champions 11 years later, $1.25 billion. I'm no math person. These numbers are all figured out for me. That is a 400% increase.
Your math is correct there. Yeah, that is very good. If the Coyotes were still here, they would probably be the only team to be worth less than $1 billion.
For
so
sure.
It's probably best that they're not here. That would have been another ugly swing to them. We can say what we want about Gary Bettman and how much we hate him, at least how much I dislike him and whatnot, and maybe players don't like him. He has done wonders for the league value and for NHL owners and their pockets, and that is who he represents, right? So never forget it. Gary Bettman represents the owners. That is his job. It is to put money in owners' pockets. It is to make sure that their franchise valuation goes up, which is everything that he has done. It is still criminal that of all the 4 major sports leagues in North America, that NHL players make the least amount of money, even though, teams are now worth $1 billion. But that's a whole other conversation as to how you're going to get a hold of that money. But in terms of business, what Gary Bettman was hired to do, he has helped owners become very, very rich. So good, but also F Gary.
State of survival. This sounds like inflation. I mean, $50 for a dozen eggs. I even think I saw 75 for a dozen. The point taken there. Of course, teams are worth billions, and yeah, I did, for sure that inflation has something to do with that. Because I mean, if you're saying, going back here, it says last year 1/4 of the league was so. That's 8 teams were worth less, and then all of a sudden they jumped up. Yeah, inflation definitely has something to do with that. But listen,
$50 for eggs. Are you buying those at the arena?
What chicken are you getting that? What farm are you at?
Are they starting left wing for Colorado? Like, is that where they are? Like, that's like buying $16 beer at the game. But that you're just like, you understand what's going on there, right?
Yeah, that's why you try and drink a couple before you go in. That way,
a Hawaiian chicken that lays eggs there.
It's got to be some sort of maybe it's like that the funky chicken mascot. I don't know, but bottom line is there's some pretty pricey eggs there, and I would probably not be eating eggs if they cost that. And also one thing he wanted to check in on as well. He had some suggestions for next 2 sites: Milwaukee or Kansas City. Sure, Bangor, Maine. Why Bangor, Maine, out of all places? I guarantee you those 2 guys didn't even know where Bangor was. And the only reason I knew is because I dated a girl who had family up by Caribou. So I don't know how you'd put a team in Bangor, Maine, but I mean, what do I know?
That is very specific. What is the big city in Maine?
So
Can't be Bangor.
Bangor is just a geographic center, pretty much. So
Right.
maybe that's why. What is Portland's a big? I forget what the capital is, but it's not Portland. Maybe it's Portland. But nice beaches there. I love Maine. It's an unknown potato growing country area too. Like everybody knows Idaho potatoes. Maine grows potatoes too.
Augusta,
Maine,
for those of you worrying, but that's not the Augusta we think. It's not.
Yes, not Georgia.
Bangor, Maine has given us one of the most legendary hockey players, one of the legendary hockey goalies of all time, Julie the Cat Gaffney. I mean, come on. You got to get a team out there just to represent. I mean, she helped Team USA win in that, what was it, the Goodwill Games. So I feel like that's one of the perfect spots to get a team out there going.
I mean, at first I was going to say, no way you could put a professional team in a town of 32,000. But when you frame it like that, I mean, you almost kind of have to now, right?
Our apologies to the good people of Bangor, Maine.
Bangor, Presque Isle, Caribou. It's good. It's beautiful.
Our apologies for not knowing exactly where you are, but now we know. Thank you, State of Survival, for helping us bring hockey to new places in Maine.
When you when you produce, Julie the Cat, I mean, you probably should be on the map, I guess. A couple more things to get to here before we check in with our fantasy teams and our Halloween candy draft. Nice story. Marc-Andre Fleury returned to Pittsburgh for the final time in his career. He gets the win, gets the first star of the game, gets to address the crowd. Sidney Crosby and Chris Letang stayed out on the ice after the game for their old pal. So really nice story there. Now that kind of leads me to this. Considering the state of Canadian goaltending with the Four Nations face-off coming up, we talked about this over the summer. You got like us United States down here. It's an embarrassment of riches. Jake Ottinger, Thatcher Demko, Connor Hellebuck, like the list just goes on and on. Up there, here are your options: Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, Stuart Skinner, Samuel Montembeault, Darcy Kemper, and Connor Ingram. You bring 3 goalies with you, and you only dress 2. Do you just put Marc-Andre Fleury on the roster as kind of like that honorary? And maybe he does play. Maybe he is worth playing when you consider that as the company that he's keeping there. But I think he almost has to have a spot, if nothing else, for that same role that Phil Kessel played with the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, all right, you're not dressing, but you're a good guy to have in the room, and everybody loves and respects you, and your voice carries some weight.
Yeah, I think he gets that emotional role. But, looking at this group, no disrespect to Montembeault and to the rest of these guys that are on here, I wouldn't not dress him. I think that he gets a spot. I mean, he's better than Jordan Binnington, right? Maybe Aiden Hill and Stuart Skinner are the ones that get dressed up for this. I don't know where Connor Ingram fits in there. I would carry probably Hill and Skinner if it's me. But I don't know how Chris feels. It's his nation. He's got to be the deciding factor in this.
Those are some terrible options.
Find reasons for not any of them. Exactly.
Yeah, those are. Look, I mean, we were having conversations about Tristan Jarry possibly being on that team, and now he's in the AHL. So that list is not good. Canada, for the longest period of time, has had elite goaltending, and now we are realizing that this nation is no longer producing elite goaltenders. Elite forwards or elite players, there's a good handful of those guys. But, I mean, in my mind, I guess it would be Aiden Hill. And I guess, maybe Stuart Skinner. But
not a strong start.
Not a strong start. Ideally, I would not carry Skinner. If Montembeault, I would carry Montembeault probably. I know he's been, absolutely falling apart. But to his defense, he plays in Montreal. So, I mean, maybe if Samuel Montembeault had some elite defensemen in front of him, maybe that would change. But you're right. I know Fleury is older, but I mean this list of goalies is just it's not good. I don't think Fleury gets an invite. I don't think he's going to be part of the team. I understand what you're saying and how he could be a good guy in the room. I don't even know if he would want to go, right? And to not dress and not play. Maybe he just wants to go home and hang out with his family, or I don't know, take somebody else's tires off their car as a prank. So maybe he just wants to hang out and do whatever he loves. But that list of goaltending is not probably best we never talk about it ever. You could pick out a hat, like a name out of a hat. Like bring all 7 goalies, F it, and then just pick a name and then be like, here, you go. Let's see if this works.
3 names pulled every night. You 3 are dressing, and then we'll figure it out. And then we'll do another draw to figure out who's starting.
Figure it out. That's it. Just ask McDavid to never allow the puck to go in the defensive zone. That's it.
See, one thing I think you might be wrong on is I think he would want to come if he got an invite, because this is his farewell. If like he still had a couple of years left, but like, all right, whatever. This is his farewell tour. It's his last chance to represent Canada in any fashion. He'll get a chance to skate with Crosby again. So there's that appeal there too. So I almost think he's not going to lobby for an invite. That's not his way. That's not his character. But I think if he got an invite, he would absolutely take it. Because this is it. This is your last, this is the farewell tour. So, if you're getting just like a band on a farewell tour, you get asked to play some random festival and it works on your schedule. Great. Let's throw that in too. And just my suggestions from that list, obviously I'm saying Fleury's got to be one of them. I mean, if you want to go with the Stanley Cup winners, then it's either Binnington, Kemper, or Hill. I guess Hill. And now if you have Fleury there and you have a vet, that kind of hurts Binnington's stock a little bit. You don't need to have that hothead there anymore.
I was going to say he's just probably going to fight somebody. So it's better not he be there. I've been hearing these conversations about people thinking Tom Wilson deserves to be on the team. It's like, who's he going to fight, or who's he going to cheap shot? Like, we don't, you know what I mean? This is about skill on skill. I don't think of Tom Wilson and think of skill.
I think you go Skinner, Hill, Fleury. Fleury is going in is just planned on being as like a locker room guy. But if Hill is banged up, which is possible, and if Skinner is not playing well at that point and you don't trust him, you go with the sentimental favorite. And even if he loses, whatever, people aren't going to be too pissed at him. And people understand it's not like you'd be putting him out there at the expense of somebody that's like, no, that guy should be starting over him. And you're just going for the good story. I think when those are your options, if Hill's healthy, I guess he's the starter. If Skinner's playing well, he's the starter. Otherwise, you go to Fleury.
Yeah, I'm going with the guys with the most recent playoff experience, I would say, which are those two. And I don't even know where Darcy Kemper fits on. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, Chris. This is going to be a rough goaltending.
You send Darcy Kemper home. That's what you send him home. You say, rest whatever lower body ailments you are having. I need him in fantasy and some other leagues. So stay home, rest up. It's not like he's any good. It's not like he helped Colorado win a Stanley Cup. If anything, he was a detriment. He could have cost them one. So just sit home. Don't stay as far away from the Canadian net as possible, and we'll pencil in the rest of them. See how that works.
We could give you our 4th best goalie. Whoever doesn't make the cut between Swayman, Ottinger, Demko, and Hellebuck, whichever one of those 4, and then all of a sudden your team is
listen to that list.
Entirely different if you get one of those. Whoever the 4th guy
that list. Look at that. That is an abundance of riches right there. You know what I mean? I remember there was a time where Canada had Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, like ready to kind of like, go. And then like Fleury one year was there. Like he had the most Stanley Cups and couldn't crack the lineup at all. You know what I mean? Like couldn't be anywhere near it because you had legendary Hall of Famer goalies in front of him.
Curtis Joseph is your 3rd goaltender. Oh, geez. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, now we're like, hey, like, can Jordan Binnington not try to fight his opponent? I don't know.
Can the rest stay healthy?
All right. Good question here from State of Survival, which he says from the current season. USA's goalies or Russia's goalies? We've listed USA's goalies. Russia's goalies would be Ilya Sorokin, Igor Shesterkin, Andrei Vasilevsky. Those are the big 3 right there. I mean,
and what was USA again? You said Ottinger,
Hellebuck, and then whoever you think is better between Swayman or Demko right now, which
I guess I got to go with Russia on that one.
Yeah.
All 3 of those Russian goalies could like
start for the U.S.
Start for the U.S. They could. How can we maybe get one of those goalies to be Canadian for like all of 10 minutes? Like maybe, I don't know. Think about it.
Think about it.
Again, an abundance of riches right there, right?
Is there like a 4th Russian goalie I'm not even thinking of right now that could even like be a starter?
There's probably.
Sergei Bobrovsky, duh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Remember Sergei?
The guy that's fresh off a Stanley Cup championship, that guy.
Damn. Russia's producing goalies.
Yeah, you got 2 goalies that have been in the Stanley Cup in the last 4 years, right? Like, Florida has been there twice in the last 2
Yeah.
years. Before
In the
that,
3 years
Tampa
before.
was there, right? Or 3
Tampa was
years?
there 3 years in a row, and
So that's
Vasilevsky was
5
there.
years. And then you got the number 1 goalie in hockey in Shesterkin, right? We would consider. At least when we were doing draft, he went number 1. And then
you
Sorokin last year was considered number 1.
And then you also have Sorokin as, Varlamov would probably be 5th on that list. And then there's a cliff drop to Georgiev, Samsonov, Kochetkov. We'll see. We'll see how he develops. This is a big year for him. But yeah, I mean, the embarrassment of riches in both the Russian goaltending. Yeah, when it's those 4 names, I mean, listen, Hellebuck's great, reigning Vezina winner. Jake Ottinger is as steady as they come, and it's just top notch almost every night. Demko, when he's on the top of his game, he is just unbeatable. Swayman, from what he's shown, is going to be a bona fide top 3 U.S. goaltender for future tournaments. But when you give off that Russian list of Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, who's about to become the most highest paid goalie in history, and Ilya Sorokin, yeah, it's Russia. And, that's one thing that's kind of missing from this 4-nation face-off is that you don't have one of the powerhouses there. It should be a 5-nation face-off. Again, we understand political things and things going on where they're not going to be involved. That's neither here nor there. But there is a major contender that is not a part of this tournament that could easily win the whole thing.
This just means that during Chris's night leagues, he's just going to have to put the pads on, get in net, and start getting himself ready.
Yeah. So
I don't think I'm not a good goalie, but here's what I will say. Canada's offense is by far the best on paper. And I mean, when you have Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Sidney Crosby on one team, like there's no getting around that. So that at least is good. There's a lot to love there. Yeah, I don't know if I put on the pads if I'd be any better. I think one of those goalies can handle it. I may be better than Tristan Jarry, but all those other goalies are probably better than me.
Fair enough. I'll take that assessment. One more thing we got to get to before we get to a quick fantasy check-in in our candy draft and send everybody off to their respective trick-or-treating tonight. Stay safe. Make sure you're visible in the streets when it's dark, all that stuff. Steven Stamkos also got his return to Tampa Bay out of the way earlier this week. I know, NHL scheduling, there's, you can only fine tune and cherry pick things so much, but it almost doesn't feel like a homecoming when a guy comes back after like 7-8 games. Like, hey, it's still October and you had your whole, you know what I mean? It doesn't have that same vibe as if it was like in January or like February or something like that. But are we concerned with Stamkos? Or are we still giving him some slack in that transitional new team, new everything kind of phase? Is he still in that category, or is it a little cause for concern?
I'm okay with I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here, right? He's a premier goal scorer, and I mean he spent so long in Tampa Bay with John Cooper as well. He probably knew their system now, like the back of his hand. Right. He goes into Nashville, moving your family. Like he's still a human, and those things affect players. Also, Nashville is not playing well. Like they're not scoring goals. It's not just him. So like this isn't a Steven Stamkos problem. This is a Nashville Predators offense problem. So I'm not really to like throw him under the bus kind of thing because it's not just him. But I would appreciate if he could, get going.
He's a symptom. He's not the problem.
Correct. That is the best way to put it. He is not the cause of the problem. He is just, he's there.
I agree. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt as well. Like Chris said, just Nashville's off to this, tough start. They got a whole bunch of new players, him, Marchessault as well. So, give it a little bit of time. Like we said with the Oilers early, it's still early on in the season. You got to imagine that, some of these teams that are ahead of them will come back down to earth. I still feel like they are a playoff contender. They got one of the better goalies in the league in Saros. So we'll see what happens. But, he's been an elite scorer for such a long time. And Steven Stamkos that I don't think that he would have this big of a drop off, especially this early on in the season.
Agreed. Yeah, it's still It's Halloween. It's still, if we're having the same conversation Thanksgiving, now maybe we need to be concerned a little bit, but still early in the season. Now, before we get to the Halloween candy draft, we'll check in here of the series of the Total Hockey Now Fantasy Hockey League there. As you can see up on the screen, 12-team league. There's the current week 4 matchups. For all those times Craig has sniped me and ruined my mock draft on an afternoon. I've got a 9-1 lead there. At least hopefully I can continue to just coast on with that big of a cushion. Chris is up on a 7-2 lead on our good buddy Andrew over at Fantasy Alarm, Andrew Dewhurst. Gene and Chris Wassel. Gene's got a lead over on Chris Wassel. And then Ant's got and Wally Geis are in a little bit of a tight matchup there, 6-5. Ant's brother, Bros Before Ahos, got a 6-3 lead on Max Knight. And then Did You Just Fart versus Josh Wagner, also a tight matchup there. When you take a look at the standings, I'm not. I'm at 5th. I'm okay with that. Chris is in 2nd.
What is the top 6? Top 6 getting? I'll say this. Last week I lost my matchup, but I'm going to say it's one of the more satisfying losses because I was getting my butt kicked for most of the week. I think it was like 2-8, 3-7, and then to just lose 4-5 and get back in the game, I was very excited for. And like I said yesterday, got a good outing from Markstrom, like his first really good one. Ingram played well, and thankfully Alex Ovechkin had got 2 goals, so nice to see that as well.
I am very sad because Gene has Kaprizov, and I'm just thinking of what could have been if I had Kaprizov and Makar on my team, but we will never know. And that, unfortunately, breaks my heart. And Gene is not going to trade me Kaprizov. I've already tried to beat around that bush a little bit. It's unlikely, Gene. I don't know if I can send you some Halloween candy. Maybe that'll help out there. Maybe some goaltenders or something. I don't know, but I'm trying to get my hands on Kaprizov as much as I can. And
I want to know who's got Nico Hischier. I mean, he's been lighting it up. He's got 10 goals already.
That is Gene. Gene's got an abundance of riches here. Ooh. He's sitting on Kirill the Thrill and Nico Hischier, who's off to it. Tage Thompson, who plays wings, absolutely frying. I mean, he's got a team there. He's got a team. Some of us have our work cut out. He also has Matt Boldy. So he's got way too many Minnesota players for my liking. Gene, I think the rules state that you can only have one, and I will take
and Ross Colton.
And he's got right. He's so good. And he's got Kachukas out there winning a whole bunch of face-offs and stuff like that.
Who's his goalies?
Well, he's got Canada's goalies from what at least one of. Yeah. But he's got the same matchup there. It's the good news is he was on point with knowing that Freddie Anderson, his body can't make it anymore. So he's got Kochekov now for at least a couple of weeks. So that works out well. But
yeah,
Gene, if you need a goalie, just pick one and then have Kirill be part of it, and we can work that out.
Well, I don't think you're getting Kaprizov when his name is on the team name.
I mean, you can change team names, right? We'll allow it.
I think he had that team name before he even drafted him.
He did. And that's how I knew we were good. That's how I knew the dream was over. I had to stretch knowing there was no shot he was coming back. And I was afraid to lose Makar there. So
I had Kaprizov on my teams last year and he wasn't this good.
Chris gave me a spanking 8-4-1 last week. And that's kind of what, instead of going with like, okay, you win the week, so it's 1-0. I like when you have the categories because it's a more accurate reflection of team performance. I mean, I got my team up on the screen right now. I think I'm going to be okay. I think it's just like I have a few guys that were strong out of the gate that have played better over the last couple of weeks. Clayton Keller had a big night last night. You're looking at, I'm happy with my blue line, as we've talked about numerous times. I'm all right with my team right now. Like I got the Robert Thomas injury. When Darcy Kemper was hurt, that hurt me a little bit, but Vasilevsky can carry me. So I'm okay with my team right now.
Chris has had the paddle out for spankings for us since last season. I mean, he won both of the leagues last year that we were in. I think it was like underdog. I can't remember the other one. And now I haven't played him yet, but I'm trying to get myself ready for what is to come.
And then we got Ant's team up on the screen, like you mentioned. Ovechkin starting to score a little bit there. Quentin Byfield got a little bit of a slow start, but he had a better game last night against Vegas. And then if you ever need to make a trade with Chris, you know what you're going to have to include. It's right there, right in the middle of your screen.
It's right there. And you see your team looks like it needs a little bit of a jolt here because I see you got Jeff Skinner, and he looks like an absolute corpse.
Yes.
Wyatt
Yes.
Johnson off to a little bit of a slower start than I would have hoped. Byfield also looks like a corpse. Roman Yossi's not collecting the points, but it's still early. I think it'll come. But yeah, you look like a prime candidate to hand over some talent.
Yep.
So
It might be happening. I'll be honest. I haven't been as focused with the way this baseball postseason has in the waiver wire. So I have to start getting back into my groove.
And I will say, I mean, for the people who have sent out trade offers, shout out to you guys. We haven't gotten any done, but they aren't as bad as other leagues. So at least your offers are competitive in nature, right? I can understand the underlining of what you're trying to do. I'm just not willing to do it. But it's good, right? I don't look at it. Sometimes in other leagues, I just look at it, and then it's so bad I just leave it there, and then I hope it'll just go away by itself, right? I kind of treat it like, if I leave it there long enough, somebody else will deal with this.
The league that I won a couple of years ago on Yahoo, or I think it was ESPN. There were no trades made, like at all. I'm like, man, this is the first time I'm playing fantasy hockey, and it's this rough. Like everything came down to the waiver wire, especially the last 2 weeks of the season for me to win that league. But yeah, man, no trades at all. Wow.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. It's still early. I don't like to make big trades early in the season just because it's early. Like you got to let dust settle a little bit before you start making drastic changes, unless you get a rash of injuries that kind of forces your hand a little bit. And when I say rash injuries, I mean long-term injuries. Like even if it's a bunch of short-term ones, maybe just you take a bad week and next week will be better kind of deal.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do anything
So early.
like that. It's too early. We're also not talking about any more baseball today. As I am a Yankee fan. We do not need to revisit the fifth inning and beyond of Game 5 of the World Series. It is indeed time for our Halloween candy draft. Yes, let's segue into that. Something that'll make me nice and happy. Getting to draft some Halloween candy. And there we go. You can see on the screen there. We've got our draft order: Ant first, Chris second, me third. There's our categories. You got a full-size candy bar, American fun size, Canadian fun size, a non-chocolate treat. So that is something sugary, something without chocolate on it, and then a flex spot that you can do anything in. Now, the one rule I will put on this is we cannot double up a full size and an American fun size. So like if you have a candy bar you like and somebody grabs that full size, well, you can't take the fun size version of that. That is where we're going to have a little bit of strategy, and it's not just going to be us picking our favorite candies today.
Okay. I understand the rules.
That's pretty much it. So anything's on the board within reason. We're not doing, like I said in the text before, no donuts, no apples, no your trick or treat donation has been blah, blah. No. We're just keeping it to the candy that, you have a good chance of going out and getting here in a little while. So, Ann, you have the first pick. You can go any direction you want. What is going to be your first selection here? You are muted.
Fantastic start.
Awesome start. I do have the first pick, and I think I am going to get my Canadian candy out of the way first. And go with a candy that I have in the house, thanks to my wife, who does this little box that gets, different snacks from different countries. And we got one from Canada, and it was Smarties. So I'm going to take Smarties.
I know that was on Chris's list.
It definitely was, but it's not what I thought.
Was it a stealer? Did I steal that one from you?
No, that's okay. For those of you who don't, right, this is, I have some candy here, obviously. This is what Smarties are. They come in a nice little box like here. They're colored, right? Things like that. So I feel like since I can't draft them, I might as well just consume them. So
there you go. That's food eating food, folks. That's
No,
a whole
no.
other level.
That's what I said. All right. So I know some of you have never had this, and that is absolutely criminal. But I'm going to go with the candy I also have here, which is coffee crisp. That's right. It wasn't getting to you, Adam. Stop it. I'm not going to let the rest of you take what is great to Canada here. Okay. You have your American goalies. I have my coffee crisp. So
when I was
Coffee
doing my
crisp.
research for candies, that was the number one thing on the list, but I have never had one, so I could not pick that one. But
I've never had it.
Is
I've
it
never-
like a Kit Kat or something?
no, it tastes.
No?
Think of it as like a hint of like coffee. Just a hint, though. Just a hint. It's like it's like chocolate. It's got a little wafer in it. It's really good.
Yeah. Just
Fantastic.
based on a look, I was going to take that first. With my pick there. No, you taking that. Is there a full size version of that, or is that the Canadian?
You can get it as a full size. That definitely exists.
So,
I only have the fun size versions of them with me today.
so which one am I slotting that as your full size or your Canadian?
Yeah, well, I'm
size?
taking the Canadian fun size. I got
Okay.
my full size candy bar in mind here.
So
It's
does
coming
that
back.
mean the full size, is that still in play?
No. So now if you
That
take a
candy
fun
is
size,
out.
once
Candy
the
is
candy
gone.
selected is out, so there's
Okay.
no full version of a coffee crisp available. It's gone.
I own the whole trademark.
All right, I've got decisions to make. I love being on the turn here.
That's
one of my
right.
picks will be a Canadian one because my top one was taken. I do have a couple others I like, but I don't want to let any of those go. I guess. Listen, I'm going to go with Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, but I'm going to have that be my full size pick there because let's face it, even though when you get the one in the bag or the minis in the bag, no, I want at least the two or, maybe even the king size where you get four, but we'll say the two. I want my 2 peanut butter cups. I have to go with that there.
I was going
way.
to ask if that is that. I was going to ask if that's considered a full size candy because it's 2 little cups, but I would agree that's perfect for me.
I think the 2 cups is about the equivalent size of your standard candy bar. So I think that's the equivalent there. And now you're going to have to forgive the pronunciation. Is it Sweet Mary or Sweet Marie for the Canadian fun size? Am I going here?
Should be Sweet Marie.
Sweet Marie. So yeah. I mean, again, haven't tried it, but looked it up, and that one looks pretty delicious. And I don't have a deep roster of Canadian candies, so I want to make sure I get that box checked right away, and I get Sweet Marie there, which sounds weird.
All right, those are decent. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go straight to the flex, and I'm going to go straight with another Canadian candy, of course, because I'm not letting you guys take what is mine here. And I'm sure I can find some other Canadian ones that also fit into like the full size candy bar kind of thing. But in the flex here, I'm going to go with Crunch.
And that is spelled just like it's supposed to. See, it's not.
It's just Crunch. It comes in so think of it as like chocolate with like little think of it as like
we have Nestle Crunch here. It's like the little rice in there, right? Like the dried rice. Yeah, so we have that.
Do you?
Yeah, it's Nestle Crunch bar.
Okay, well it's Canadian, so taking it.
All right, so we've got a couple of the takes in the chat here before we get to our next pick here. O. Henry is one possible one that's still on the board. That's both American and Canadian. We got O. Henry, but they're not big down here, but we do have them. He's also throwing out Mr. Big. That was on my list. It might still come. We'll see. And he says Eat More is also Canadian. I don't know what an Eat More bar is, so you have to educate that for us. He's also saying chocolate and peanut butter need to be separated. That's like no, that is not like putting pineapple on those are not. No, that's a whole other segment. We don't have time.
Survival sounds like he eats candy corn.
Yeah, I mean that's something that's probably not getting picked here today. So Ant's on the clock now with his second and third round picks.
Yeah, Adam, you took my full size candy bar. That's my number one favorite. And if I can't have that, I go with my second favorite. My full size will be a Kit Kat bar.
All right. Classic Kit Kat bar, part of pretty much every Halloween. Real strong pick there to close out round 2. How are we opening round 3?
So I'll go American fun size. Now there's some candies that are great as small, better than their bigger versions of the bar. So the small one I'm going with is my Butterfinger. I like a Butterfinger as a smaller bar than the big long one.
You're right. The bigger one, like it starts to get stuck to the roof of your mouth towards the end of that.
And
yeah,
the taste is
I get it.
different. The taste is totally different.
I would agree with that. I think that's again, just like over the summer, you're really shrewd with picks. It's really annoying. Back to you, Chris.
I will go with a full-size candy bar here.
Okay.
I'm also keeping it Canadian. I will go with Caramilk, which is chocolate and caramel.
I like the name. I like when you do compound words. You keep it nice and easy. So there you go. Chris just fully Canadian all the way through, even though the Crunch Bar does kind of cross both borders. State of Survival. My Halloween candy is poutine. Not a bad way to go before you eat the candy. There you go. All right. So Chris waiting on me to make my picks here. I've got American Fun Size non-chocolate treat and my flex spot. I'm going to wait on my flex spot. And no sugary treats have gone yet. But before we get to that, I got to get my Fun Size. I'm a big Baby Ruth guy when it comes to candy bars. If somehow I didn't get the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, that was going to be my full-size bar. It's got peanuts, chocolate. It's got everything you need. It's a reliable old candy bar. It's named after an American baseball legend. I mean, it's got it all. I mean, let's go. And then to go with my 4th round pick here, the non-chocolate treat. Much like Marshawn Lynch, I also love the Skittles. I try to stay away from them, but you put some fun-sized bags in my daughter's trick-or-treat bag, and I will be assured of what I say is the dad tax, where I take a couple of those things for myself. So we will be doing the Skittles for the non-chocolate treat here in the 4th round.
That is a very good. Before I make my pick, can I move Crunch into the American Fun Size now that I know it's American?
Yeah, it's just
like they have Fun Size Crunch. Is
yes,
that allowed?
They do.
I'm not. Okay.
That's a big one on Halloween too.
Okay, I feel like that is fair. Okay, so I will now go with a non-chocolate treat as well. I'm a big fan. I like sour. I also like sweet candies. But in the non-chocolate treats, I'm going to go with sour tarts. Sweet tarts. Sorry, not sour tarts. Sweet tarts.
I don't know sour tarts. I know sweet tarts.
Sweet tarts. That is a very good candy. I enjoy it. I know it's a little chalky, and sometimes people don't enjoy it. I enjoy sweet tarts.
They do have nerds in the U.S. That is on my potential list here to round things out on my flex spot. You can still find the candy cigarettes. They're not easy to find, but you can still find them.
Those are really Status Survival's got some really good ones. If your team was as good as your candy draft, you'd be at the top of that leaderboard, buddy. Those are some fantastic choices.
You don't want to. It's like you don't want to go trick or treating with him if it's you, because then you don't get all the it's going to be a competition for that good stuff. So yeah, that's
good.
A lot of good Canadian picks there. Now Ant's going to close out round 4 and begin round 5 with his last 2 picks.
So let me ask this now. So there are variations of the sweet tarts. Is sweet tarts is it all gone? Or because there's a candy that I love that's non-chocolate that are called sweet tart ropes.
It's a variation. That's not the same thing. It's not like it's sweet tart tropical where it's the same form, just different flavors.
No, these are long ropes with the sour in the middle. Those are my kryptonite.
I'll allow it.
I'm okay with it.
All right. Because you know how they have like nerds, and then they have nerd ropes, and then they have nerd clusters, and it's like a whole bunch of different things. But the sweet tart ropes, those are my kryptonite. And for my flex, I am going to take Sour Patch Watermelon.
Sour Patch Watermelons. Those are good. I do like the watermelon ones. The strawberry one's also very good.
Mm-hmm.
Last pick there, Sour Patch Watermelon. And Chris is about to make his last pick here.
I'm going to go with a non-chocolate treat. I enjoy candy as well. These are I just enjoy them very much. Starburst. Very, very good candy. Love it. I'll eat Starburst as much as I can. I like all the flavors, though. Less of a fan of the watermelon, but the orange ones are good. The yellow ones are good. The red ones are good. All of that's pretty good.
I like Starburst, but it is annoying when you get multiples that have the same ones in the pack. that both have the yellow, but like I don't like to double up. I like a mix. Give me a mix. I don't care what the mix is, but give me a mix. So I got one more to go here. You know, the fact that the Snickers bar is still on the board is almost criminal to me. That I feel like I almost have to take that. I've got a Baby Ruth, so it's a little bit of overlap there. So I'm gonna go way off the board.
They're totally
here.
different.
I'm going way off the board here. Boston baked beans is gonna be my last pick.
Jesus,
I would have never saw that coming as a pick.
They are basically like like candy coated peanuts, like the red candy coated peanuts. Yeah, it's something different. It's not in candy bar form. It's poppable. Yeah.
Is it chocolate candy coated?
It's a candy coated with a tiny bit of chocolate in there, but it's more candy coated. I don't even think there is chocolate in there. I think it's just candy coated. I'm a sucker for those.
I don't even know where they sell those anymore. I feel like that's a vintage candy.
It is a vintage candy. That's like lemon heads, like that kind of era. That's where that belongs. That's a vintage candy. You don't see them like if you go trick or treating, you'll probably find one of those like in your whole bag. You know what I mean? It's not like a Snickers or a Milky Way where you can have like 15 of them. But I think we have a pretty good candy draft there, and everybody's happy. Everybody's gonna have to go to the dentist soon, and but I think Chris got most of his Canadian stuff. He did not get sniped. I did try to do that. Would you ever consider a Sweet Marie bar, or was that not on your radar?
No, I was not on my radar. It's not as popular here. It would not have been. No, Coffee Crisp was definitely the go-to. Like if you know here in Canada, Coffee Crisp is really good. I also consumed A.O. Henry as well. Very, very good. So, and I know it's not up on this list there. I wanted to go with two candies because I enjoy candy a little bit more than the chocolate, but also Aero, really good. So it's like chocolate and it's got little like air bubbles in it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Again, if you know. So
if we are not drafting and you pick one of your Canadian candy bars, is the go-to the Coffee Crisp? Is that the number one for you?
I would say so. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Caramel milk as well. Depends on like my mood. But you can't really go wrong with Coffee Crisp. You can't. Excellent
suggestion here. Twix too. That certainly could have gone. That maybe if I had remembered Twix bar, that goes maybe instead of the Boston baked beans. He tells me Sweet Marie is for old people, which goes along with my wine palate, according to my wife, that I have the same wine taste as like a 50-year-old woman. So I guess that's just right in line with that. So there we go. There's our Halloween candy draft. That was fun. A little way to get into Halloween there. And it's I know I already heard one trick-or-treater, I think, come to Chris's door in the background there, as Milo alerted us. They're not too far behind in my neck of the woods. But before we get out of here, Ant did mention Subway to Shea podcast taking a little bit of a break after an extremely busy, we'll say 6 weeks. So any Mets content off season, check it out there. Slapshot podcast there with Chris. Anything to promote there this week?
Tomorrow. It'll be out there tomorrow. Big Halloween there. I promise Puck Doku will be there. I heard you all last week. I heard you. Puck Doku will be back tomorrow. I promise. So if you want to watch me struggle, it's there.
Sometimes it's tough to fall asleep after eating that Halloween candy with the sugar rush, but I will sleep a little bit better knowing that Puck Doku is back and tomorrow. And Rip and Riff, new episode going to drop in 20 minutes here. Special guest Michael Riker of the Top of the Hops podcast, former colleague of Barrett and myself. We commiserate about the Yankees loss. So if you're looking for more of that, you're looking to lick your wounds, we got a few minutes in that for you. But yeah, this was fun today. We are back here on Thursdays, and we for the foreseeable future. I think that's going to be where we're at. Maybe American Thanksgiving, and then we'll see what goes on there. But we're for fantasy, we're for betting, we're for all that stuff. But we're at Fuzzy Chris 91 down below, and at Ant Rivera 86 over there. I am at Fucking Thoughts, and we're going to be back next time here on a brand new episode. Total Hockey Now. Total Hockey Now YouTube.